Heard the story of Paul and Silas singing in prison and how the earth shook and their chains fell off. But did you know how it all started? It started with a girl. She was a slave, used, manipulated, and possessed by a spirit that allowed her to tell the future. Her masters exploited her pain for profit, making money off every word the demon whispered through her. Then Paul and Silas came to Philippi, preaching freedom through Christ, and her torment didn't go unnoticed. Day after day, she followed them through the streets, shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God who are telling you the way to be saved." Sounds right, doesn't it? But Paul discerned something deeper. The enemy doesn't mind mixing truth with deception if it keeps people in chains. Eventually, Paul had enough. He turned to her and said,
"Jesus Christ, I command you to come out of her!"
Her freedom came at a cost. Her masters were furious. Their easy money was gone. They dragged Paul and Silas before the city authorities, stirred up the crowd with false accusations, and without a trial, they were stripped, beaten with rods, and thrown into the deepest part of the prison. Their feet were placed in stocks, painful restraints designed not just to confine but to torture. Their backs were bleeding. Their bodies ached, all for setting someone free. But here's the part that defies all logic. Around midnight, when the body is weakest and hope feels farthest away, Paul and Silas began to pray and sing hymns to God. No complaining, no questioning, just raw, unfiltered worship. They weren't singing because they were free, they were singing because their hearts were. They knew that even in chains, God was still worthy. Even in pain, God was still present. And heaven answered. Suddenly, the ground shook. An earthquake so powerful it shook the very foundations of the prison. Doors flew open. Chains fell off. Not just theirs, but every prisoner's. Total freedom, divine intervention. The jailer, waking to the chaos, assumed the worst. Under Roman law, if the prisoners escaped, he'd be executed. He drew his sword to take his own life, but Paul shouted,
"Don't harm yourself."
None of them. That's the power of praise. It doesn't just change your situation, it changes the atmosphere around you. Even the guilty prisoners stayed, stunned by the presence of God. Trembling, the jailer fell before them and asked the most important question anyone can ever ask.
What must
"Sirs,
I do to be saved? What must I do to be saved?"
Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved.
and your household." And just like
Forgive
that,
me, please.
the
You
jailer
are
who
forgiven.
once held them captive became
Let
a
us
brother
share
in
the good
Christ.
news.
That night, he washed their wounds, brought them into his home, and he and his entire family were baptized. The night ended with joy instead of fear, healing instead of violence. By morning, the magistrates sent word to release Paul and Silas. But Paul, knowing his rights as a Roman citizen, demanded that the officials come and release them publicly. Why? Not for revenge, but to restore their dignity and protect the young church from further abuse. Paul and Silas didn't just walk out with freedom. They walked out with favor. This story isn't just about prison doors swinging open. It's about what happens when people choose to praise in pain, worship in weakness, and trust in the dark. You might feel like you're in your own prison, trapped by circumstances, weighed down by fear, or held back by spiritual chains. But don't underestimate what God can do at midnight. He's still the God who sends earthquakes. He still breaks chains, and he still sets people
Lord,
free.
when I feel bound by
Lord, when I
hardship-
feel bound by hardship or overwhelmed by life, remind me that worship is a weapon. Shake the foundations around me. Break every chain and lead me into your freedom.